Hello and welcome everybody to the Personalised Health Summit. Thank you so much for being here and for joining us. We are so excited to be bringing amazing information to you over the next 2 weeks. We have 30 amazing speakers from all over the world, experts in personalised health, and this is just such an amazing time to be alive and this information that's here. So thank you so much for making the effort and the time to be here for your health. This is, I guess, the biggest thing I'd like to take a moment to do is just to introduce the intention for what this summit's all about. And it really is to collate a lot of information from the experts that are out there that exist and bring this together in a way that you can actually start to digest and understand a lot of the information that's out there in various fields, from nutrition, exercise, sleep, happiness, consciousness, talking about the mind, talking about emotions, world health solutions, biotechnology, integrated medicine. So many amazing sessions that we're going to be having over the next 2 weeks. And just really excited to bring this to you, and the intention that you'll be able to collate information and find out what's right for you. And that's what our mission is all about here at this Health Summit. So before we get started, I'd also like to thank our sponsors, the Ultimate Human Foundation, whose mission is to eliminate chronic pain and disease by 2050. Now, this is an international collaboration of a lot of leading doctors and scientists and specialists and health ambassadors all over the world that are really pulling together to make this a reality. And it sounds pretty crazy when you stand in this day and age as to how we can eliminate all these chronic diseases that actually exist. There's thousands and thousands, but the reality is that if you stand in 2050 and look backwards, if you're able to prevent disease from happening in the first place for even just one generation, then we're in a space and time that we have a pain-free, disease-free world. And that really is the intention, the mission here. So thank you so much to the Ultimate Human Foundation for your support. And thank you so much to PH360, who's our other major sponsor, who's really working to create a tangible way that we can harness epigenetics and personalised health insights into a way that we can understand more about the foods that are right for you, the exercises that are good for you, the environment and climate that's right for you, even the social interactions, the people you hang out with, natural talents, and the way that your mind works. It's really an amazing platform. So please check it out, ph360.me. And thank you so much to our amazing sponsors that are here today to make this a reality. Most importantly, out of everybody, thank you for being here. You are the reason why this summit is on, and you are the reason why we're here. So thank you so much for making the time and the effort and putting your health first. A huge congratulations to you on that, because you're one step ahead of the curve already. So thank you, welcome, and just a few little housekeeping rules. There's a speaker schedule that you should see on the side of your screen. If you're watching a replay here, you may just see that down the bottom in a link. It's onlinehealthsummit.com/schedule, I believe. And that's where you can go and click on any of your 30 speakers that you see throughout the week. One click and you'll be into any session that you need to do. So everything is there for you. It's going to be an absolutely fantastic couple of weeks. If you need any help or assistance, support at onlinehealthsummit.com is what you need to be doing. Support at onlinehealthsummit.com. And most importantly, if you want to join the conversation, everything that we're doing this week is a live video interview. We'll have live callers. If you want to join, at the end of each interview, you have an opportunity to join the Hangout. So today you're going to be able to interact with live speakers and myself to be able to ask any questions that come up as we go. So we're really excited. Without any further ado, I'm super excited to be launching this summit with Tyler Tolman. Tyler's the co-founder of Conscious Lifestyler, a global online community that helps members to improve their health and take control of their lives through natural and healthy practices, tools, and values. Tyler's aims to strip away the lies that have been fed from birth and to shed the light on key principles of living a natural, healthy, disease-free life, to reintroduce the power of whole plant foods and natural healing to the world so that all can benefit from this ancient wisdom that exists. So Tyler, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's super excited to have you here.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for having me, man. It's great.
Well, Tyler, I know that you're currently in Brisbane, I believe, in the world, and it's a ridiculous hour of the morning. So I really appreciate you to be here to kick this summit off. We're so excited to be here, and I'd love to jump in and have you share with everybody listening today a little bit about your background and about your journey that got you to this point in time, and some of the things that can really set the scene for who you are and what you're about.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thanks for the introduction. And a little bit about me is, I think I was raised a lot like everyone else, or most people, in the sense that I was raised in a big city. I was raised in America, standard American diet, kind of like the standard Australian diet or Western diet in general. Yeah, and I went to a regular public school. I was, I think an outgoing type of kid, had a lot of friends, but didn't really know a lot about health and nutrition. Just kind of went with what was being served, pizza and hot dogs and McDonald's and KFC and all these types of things on every corner. Became quite addictive. And I love that type of food because, that's what I was kind of raised on. And I had the ability and I had a chance to kind of have a different perspective on life. Around the age of 12, I went out to stay with my father, and he had a 200-acre farm. It was the first time I was really out of the city. And yeah, 200 beautiful rolling hills of grass with peacocks and swans and ducks. And my dad had these big grow boxes, and he was growing all of his own food, beautiful food. He had fruit trees, and I remember going out and actually picking peaches and, picking different types of fruit like apples and things, and going out into the garden. He had this big pile of, used food called a compost pile. And we had chickens and, goats, and I was milking the goats in the morning. And it was just a completely different experience to what I had had growing up. So, and I felt it, maybe it was, being out in nature a little bit more, but I just felt better. I felt awake. I felt open. I felt alive. And I noticed that just my dad and, the family that he had created was just really cool. Everybody worked together, making the food, making a fire, doing all these things. And it was just this energy that was completely different to what I had known. So, being out at this farm and having this different experience was just like, wow, like the energy was just amazing. And, beyond that, about a month, maybe 30, 45 days after being there, a bunch of people had arrived. And my father's background was, he was going to pursue a medical career and become a neurosurgeon, gone to medical school, the whole 9 yards. And then he literally pulled out and decided that's not the route he wanted to go. And he decided to travel around the world and stay with long-lived cultures of people, Native American tribes, really interesting, cultures that were long-lived and didn't experience the kind of disease that we do in the West. So he had really gotten turned on to that stuff. He spent 17 years of his life traveling and even living with some of these tribes. And so he gained a lot of, I guess you could say, ancient wisdom, and really connected with different tribes specifically that he learned amazing things from. So being there was a great experience. And what he was doing is, like I said, after a couple of months, people started to arrive with terminal cancer, diabetes, heart disease, skin conditions. I remember one man that had full-blown AIDS. And I got to know these small groups of people. And my dad was doing this every summer. These people would show up, and we would take all of the greens out of the gardens. We would take the fruits out of the trees, and my dad even grew watermelons and things, and we would juice this stuff. And we were giving people juices, and it was a weird thing, but it was fun. I was just caught up in the energy of making all these juices, and these people that were quite sick, some of them of which, I was like, wow, like these people could die. And really thinking, oh my God, these people could die on this property, and they're all sick and all this stuff going on. It was really an intense experience, but it was very exciting. And I noticed, even being only 12, 13, 14 years old, each summer coming back and having these experiences, that these people changed very quickly. It was like a spark lit up inside of them. They got color back in their faces. Their personalities started to come out. And weight started to shed off their bodies. Obviously, they were fasting. So they're losing a lot of weight and regaining health. And so it was a really fantastic experience. And of course, I love juices. And my dad would run these big programs where every morning we'd get up, we'd go for a long walk, we'd really connect with each other. He would teach some stuff, we'd drink some juices. And then at the end, we'd have this big fire walk and float down the river. So I had this experience essentially of watching people heal from chronic disease.
Wow, that's amazing, Matt. And I guess if many of us had that start to life, we'd probably all be seeing things through a different set of eyes like you do too. So Matt, I'd love to jump in. I know that you are up to some amazing things at the moment, and particularly in the fields of ancient health and you really have a fascination and interest, which I do as well, and I share that with you, about the ancient practices that have existed when it comes to health and understanding more about our bodies and the knowledge and wisdom that exists from centuries worth of practice. Would you mind just sharing with the audience and with us today a little bit about some of the ancient practices that exist, some of the protocols and some of the methods? I know we could probably talk for 6 days on this, but I'd love just to hear a bit about that information and how we can start to really understand more about that to influence our lives in a healthy way today.
Yeah, sure. Well, one that's coming up for me right now is called the Essenes. And the Essenes were a group of individuals that lived just outside of Babylon during the times of King Nebuchadnezzar. And then there was a king by the name of King Cyrus. And this was, basically world dominating cities back in those times, Babylon. And these individuals called the Essenes were teaching very different principles. And they all lived out in nature. They tilled the earth. They dressed differently, but a lot of people from the cities and all around the known world would go there for healing. And they taught specific ways of connecting with Mother Nature. They believed that everything was designed with a purpose. Everything was designed on purpose. And the word purpose means pure position. It's a pure position of where you're coming from, living life if you use your senses, if it makes sense, so to speak. Using your eyes, using your nose, using your taste, using sound, walking throughout nature. If we just simply use our senses and live as natural human beings in flow, Mother Nature will support us, not only support us, but support us abundantly. And the things that Mother Nature supports us with are also massively healing to the body. I find it very interesting because even today, like some of the most prominent weeds, like dandelions and things that you see just growing everywhere, people around spraying Roundup poisons on, these things are actually the medicinal foods that clean the liver, that clean the blood, that, you can even go into PubMed these days and look up dandelion root extract. Profound studies of dandelion root extract that actually, if you take it, it kills cancer cells within 48 hours, starts to attack them. And this isn't just somebody making up some random stuff. This is PubMed saying that dandelion root extract is almost better than chemotherapy without the toxic side effects. So what I'm getting at is these individuals would just look to nature and use the eyes and senses to see and look at foods and find things that were good for the body. My dad learned that it was called the doctrine of signatures, or signs in nature, meaning that if you look at a food and it looks like a certain part of the body, that food is actually physiologically targeting that part of the body for health, for detoxification, and potentially for nutrition as well.
That's amazing.
And I could definitely give you some examples if you like.
Please share. I'm sure everybody at home would love to hear about some of those examples. Yeah.
Yeah, so a few simple ones are like if you look at a walnut has that green husk, kind of like the skin. You take that off, it looks like the cranial cap, looks like a skull. You break it open, you have the nut, left hemisphere, right hemisphere, looks like convoluted dendritic folds on top of the nut, upper cerebrums, lower cerebellums. Break it in half, it looks like the corpus callosum of the brain. So a walnut is like a little hologram of the brain. Well, anciently, you have Leonardo da Vinci drawing pictures of walnuts and brains next to each other. And they knew that these foods would enhance memory and would be good for the brain in general. And just recently, Baylor University did a study of walnuts and found it has the perfect ratio of omega-3, 6s, and 9s that cross what's called the BBB, or blood-brain barrier, enhancing brain function. Then you have foods like carrots. You take carrot out of the ground, you slice it, it looks like it has a pupil with an iris and radiating lines. Got one over there I could grab for you. But you eat a carrot and it's actually good for the eyes. University of Southern California did studies of carotenes inside of carrots, and they found that if you eat one medium-sized carrot a day, within 1 week, the blood flow and the drainage of the eyes is improved by 25 to 30%. Meaning you could prevent macular degeneration, you could potentially prevent and even reverse different conditions like cataracts or glaucoma. Now, you won't find this in medical journals yet when we talk about that, But I do have a lot of clients that I put onto juice fast with carrot juice, or have them eating carrots and doing very specific, eye exercises, and taking off their glasses, because glasses are like a crutch. If you're seeing blurry and you're having issues, it could be a multiplicity of things. It could be your liver not producing enzymes correctly, which is why they say you're going blind when you drink too much. Or it could be just that you've been looking at screens and doing other things. But it's fully correctable. And this is the thing that most people don't understand. They think that, oh, my eyesight's going bad and there's nothing I can do about it except for put on a crutch. And by putting on that crutch, you're actually making the situation a little bit worse. It's like if you hurt your leg and you wear a crutch, that leg's going to atrophy. And so over time, you have to stop wearing the crutch, rebuild the muscle to get that full use back. So carrots, walnuts, we got things like tomato. It's red. It's the size of the heart. It's got 4 chambers. American Heart Association says lycopene is the #1 foods for circulation, which tomato is the #1 source of lycopene. We have things like avocados, shaped like a womb and cervix. It's got a big swollen seed inside. Best fats for women to put on good fats during pregnancy. Also, it helps to shed bad fat. Other research has been done. 1 medium-sized avocado a day will help you shed bad fat because your body's getting the good stuff. And it takes exactly 9 months to grow an avocado from blossom to ripe fruit. So there's all these foods that exist, and it's not just whole foods. It's also with herbs. There's a very specific herbal medicinals that the shamans would go out and see and observe and almost have a connection with the plant and know what type of body part that it would affect. And so, yeah, that's very intriguing to me, is not only the fact that they could, just see in nature what was needed and Mother Nature would provide what was needed, but they also really honored the process as well. If you can imagine, like, in some of these movies where, the Native American tribes of certain planets and other places, like when they kill an animal, they really honor the animal. They go through this process and they bless it, and then they use every part and all of this. It was the same way with plants. Like, they would take plants and they observe the body as being a temple, and it was a very specific offering process. For example, we call this the elbow, which is a Hebrew word, and El meant God. El was the sign for God, and bow was to bow before God, bringing offerings of life, of light, of nature into this temple. And so as we bow before and we bring offerings with gratitude into this temple, then we were given gifts back in the bow El. So I know it's interesting, the English and where we get our words from. But the English is an evolved language from all different languages. It's called the tongue of angels. And essentially these gifts were given back in the bowel, which is bow, God bowing back. And so it's you can read some of these ancient records of these simple things, but quite profound if you really think about it.
Well, it's fascinating, mate. And I love just understanding a lot more about this. And that's one thing I'd just love to get into a conversation about as well. And it's fascinating to hear a lot of the way that, these coincidences of different foods and different shapes and sizes and how they interact with the body is now being proven with science. I'm also very interested in a lot of the ancient practices and how they come about, as you allude there, with the way that they actually interact with their food and the way that they connect with food, the way that they give thanks to food, through prayer or through other means, and how this is, been shown to influence, who we are and how food interacts with us. I'd love if you're interested to share a little bit about that from what you found ancient practices and what you sort of, the perspective that you share right now in those areas too.
Yeah, well, it was a process of using the senses, and it just makes sense. Just going back to that. And, I think that people are really missing out when they're not really connecting with their food and making it into like an orgasmic experience. And, I do this daily. It's good to have an orgasm daily, and you might as well have it when you're eating as well. So what I recommend, and what they talked about thousands of years ago, was sitting down at Mother Nature's table. And now, these guys were pretty extreme. They would only eat what Mother Nature was providing at that moment, in many cases. And yes, they, would take a lot of these things and dry them and stuff like this. But they would sit down and whatever was available, they'd look around, and sniff around and go and find stuff and pick it and bring it back together and sit down in a circle. And they would create this beautiful experience where they were in positive energy with the people they loved. They made sure they were in a positive energy. And there's information talking about how when you're bringing energy into the temple, into the body in the form of foods, whatever energy is going on around you, you're also uptaking into the body. It's like that's what you're wanting to nourish yourself with. So there would never be arguments. There would never be fighting. There would never be like eating on the run. These people weren't like, grabbing fast food, put it in their car, stressed out, shoving stuff in their face, listening to heavy metal music. Like they were sitting down, they're really honoring the space, probably saying a little prayer or just saying some words to put some positive intention into the food. And then they'd really think about, where the food came from, and it was feeding their mental body. And there's multiple bodies that exist that have been taught for thousands of years by the mystery schools beyond just the physical body. And these are the things that we aren't taught these days. We're just taught, hey, we have a physical body, you shove this food down your throat hole, or just skip that whole process altogether. Let's just extract all this stuff and make a pill that you can't even smell or taste, and you just wash it down, and that's nutrition. That's how you get your nutrition. And it's just completely dishonoring the natural processes of the body and how we smell a food. And by smelling the food, it activates the energy body. And we have this natural process called salivation. Salivation, which I think is a great word. Who wants salvation? Just smell that beautiful food, pop it into your mouth. And when it's fresh, when it's off the tree, it's off the bush, it's out of the ground, we don't need all the salt. We don't need all the sugar. We don't need all the processing. You don't need all the cooking. When you really clear yourself, maybe through doing a little bit of fasting or maybe skipping a meal, and you're actually hungry, when you take any of these foods from nature and actually really connect with it and put it in your mouth and chew it, it's a beautiful experience that so many people are missing out on. And by really closing your eyes and chewing, it's emotionally fulfilling as well. There's just something that happens, and it's undescribable. But especially when you do a fast and you go through this process of honoring it and breaking a fast with a specific food like a peach, and just smelling it, or a mango and just smelling it, and then going through this process of chewing, it's feeding our emotions. And I find that a lot of disease these days is because people aren't feeding their emotions, and they're even caught up in eating maybe processed foods and things that don't deliver the efficacy from Mother Nature, and doing it in a way of, arguing with a partner and having weird conversations and weird people and things going on all around them while they're just shoving food down their throats. And I find that mostly food is used to suppress people's emotions because they're angry, they're agitated, they're, arguing with their partners, whatever it is they're doing, having stress at work, having a breakup, something, and people are just, trying to suppress everything that's going on in their lives. And it's those emotional molecules of anger and frustration and grief while they're eating that they're just literally putting into their cells and into their body, which I believe over time is also a big process of manifesting disease. Yeah. So, yeah.
And we talk about that a lot in in the science now, of course, and we look at things in that emotion. People come home, maybe they're stressed from a tough day at the office, and it's been hard, so they'll come home and they'll feel like having a block of chocolate or a couple of glasses of wine. And we look at the science of that now, and we know that they're trying to actually induce some serotonin to be released so they can feel more happy. They're also trying to induce an alpha state in their brain so they can be more relaxed. And so we can measure this in science now, and when we bring this back to the personalized conversation about personalized health, we can really understand and say, well, instead of doing that, and that's what our body feels like it needs at the time, this is something we can now have a conversation and say, well, actually, it's not the chocolate or the wine that your body needs, even though you feel like that. You just get home, I just feel like eating chocolate, I feel like wine. What you're feeling like there is a hit of serotonin, or you feel like getting to alpha state. And there's so many different ways that you can do that. Even, they can have a banana that will, that have the high release of serotonin. There's so many different things that they can do if you understand more about your health. And so the intention of this summit is certainly exactly that, to be realizing, more about who you are and what's right for you, so that you can actually bring that back and start to change some of these habits and patterns that show up, that affect and influence your emotional state. And your food is such a huge part of that. I know that we're very excited about a lot of research that's going on at the moment. We're involved in lots of research that is all about looking at the way different foods can actually influence different brain regions to change or to be more active or less active, and different hormones and other biochemicals throughout the body to change. I'd love just to hear your thoughts or your perspective around, actually, what's the importance of food? Like, why is it so important? How does this actually relate to our health? And what do you see with people who maybe are eating the wrong foods or have been doing that the wrong way for quite a while? And how can we sort of start to change and transition out of that?
Yeah, well, I think there's some main factors to look at when it comes to whole foods. And one of those things that isn't really talked about a lot is the actual life force of the food. That's just, you don't hear about that in nutrition. Well, what about the life force? What about the electrical energy? About this thing called Carillion photography, where you can take these special photographs of a blueberry and it looks like it's, got electricity coming off it. And then you could cook that blueberry or stick it in a microwave, for 2 minutes, and then pull it out and then take another photo, and that life force is gone. So, one thing I think, if we could bring it back to understanding, is that we are electrical beings by nature. We run on electricity. Every time you breathe air, we're uptaking electricity. When we drink water, there's a certain amount of electricity in that water. We can actually pass water back and forth from one glass to another and adding more electricity. But it's getting the electrical content of foods from nature really benefits everything. It creates what's called peristaltic action within the digestive system. And I believe that when our digestive system is constantly moving, that's what actually invigorates us. It gives us energy, it gives us health, it gives us life, keeps everything flowing. And the opposite is where dis-ease comes from. When we're eating highly processed foods, when we're eating foods that have had the fibers taken out, or we're eating foods that don't contain any fiber. Fiber helps everything to move through the body. So these simple things of just really connecting and having nature, and and for people at home that may be watching, depending on where you're at, it's like, take it one step at a time. You don't need to all of a sudden become a raw foodist and just eat, bananas and fresh fruit tomorrow. But maybe just have a banana before you have some chocolate. It's like, in fact, I'm reading this book called Blue Zones right now, which is all about the longest lived cultures on the planet. I'm reading another book called Longevity, which is all the science about longevity. And it's crazy because they're talking about resveratrol. They're talking about all these beautiful properties of foods, of which you can still get from drinking a good wine. And you can still get from chocolate. And in fact, a lot of these long-lived people love chocolate and they love wine, but they also grow fresh gardens and eat, fresh foods right out of the garden. So I think the major factor here is you don't need to stop everything that you're doing. Just start to add in some of these beautiful whole foods. And, finding a chef, a whole food chef. I have a chef named Chef Cynthia who can take all of these amazing whole foods and put them together in a way that they're actually appealing, because people have lost touch with these processes so much and gone so down a road, even myself, down this road of processed foods and all these things in the past, that to get started, it makes sense to be able to put it together in a way that still satiates what we're used to, and slowly start to add in more fresh and more fresh and more fresh. Because you look at the largest studies ever conducted on human nutrition, one done by T. Colin Campbell out of Cornell University called the China Study. And the big thing that you'll find in preventing cancer in people that don't have cancer and don't have heart disease, Dr. Esselstyn and all these people talking about it, is like, it's coming back to whole foods. You know, if you look at the amount of fiber people are eating in China as opposed to America, and then you know, relate, you know, the different cancer rates, and you can do the same thing with every country on the planet. In fact, you can just go Google the countries with the highest cancer rates, and it'll pull up a list. And then you Google countries with the highest, let's say, meat intake or processed foods as well, and you'll get almost identical numbers looking at people that, you know, Denmark, for example, being the #1 highest cancer rate. You go look at, you know, meat per capita just from a separate website, and you'll find out it's the highest meat consumption, you know, the highest pig consumption on the planet. And then you start to look at the other countries, and you can really start to make a correlation yourself. And if you really want the science, then you can go read the China study. You can look at T. Colin Campbell. You can look at all these other brilliant people who have spent 30 years of laboratory research and doing all these things. And again, you know, all this research, all this money, all this time, all this effort, and it's just coming back to, like, you know, hey, eat some fruits and vegetables, eat out of the garden, you know, snack on some nuts. You know, it really comes down to that level of simplicity, getting more fiber in, getting more electrical force from nature in. You know, don't eat every meal cooked. Like, at least, you know, start to get some fresh foods. And I believe when you start to feel it, you'll start to want more. Your taste buds start to change. You know, some people may need to do a, you know, 7 to 14 day fast just for a little bit of a reset, and potentially to break some of those chemical addictions as well, because, you know, many people know there's things like MSG, artificial sweeteners, artificial colors, you know, and additives, supposed natural flavor. It's a little bit distorted, you know. And I would even say people that are highly overweight, you know, it's not your fault. Like, all the marketing and stuff that's just programming you where to go and eat, and then you eat those things and you become chemically addicted. You know, it's no wonder not everybody's, you know, massive with the amount of, you know, stuff they're putting in foods to make it addictive. So
I think we're certainly heading that way. That's the problem. I think it's a great point you bring up, and I love the fact that considering the life force in our food is such an important thing to be mindful of. And a lot of the other amazing information and research that's out there about, you know, whether it's, you know, vegetarian diets or not vegetarian diets, and, you know, eating certain foods and certain things at times of day, there's always just so much conflicting research that comes all the time, and it's just such an important time in our lives where we've got a lot more information now about, you know, what's good for us specifically and what times of day it is. I know our major sponsor PHU60 looks at more specifics on that, but I also love just to share, because you have a great platform that's set up for people in the space as well to actually engage in some of the sort of, you know, the very early stages of fasting and things like that. Would you mind just sharing, if you've got a link or something that some people can go and check out? I know you have an amazing mission that you're out to share a lot of this information with people, where they can actually go through maybe a fast to start with and see how things are going. Oh, are we still here, guys? Tyler, can you hear me, mate? I'm not sure entirely what happened here, but Tyler may have just dropped out for a minute. I'm not 100% sure. So, guys, while we're waiting for Tyler to come back in,
hey, can you got me?
Back. Okay, we're back. Right.
I think my phone ran out of credit, so I just put it on Wi-Fi.
All right, mate. We're all good. Just again, for those.
Sorry about that.
Tyler's sitting in Brisbane at the moment. It's about 2:30 in the morning. We really appreciate you making the effort, mate, to be up here to kick off this summit. It's just a fascinating conversation with you, and I was just sharing a bit about the fact that, you know, the personalised health side of things is really a great conversation now. We're in 2015. You know, we've come a long way over the centuries, and now we're able to have these conversations. And I know that you've got a great platform that exists to be able to help people, even if they're needing to start and engage in some things like fasting. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about that, where people can actually find out a bit more about that? I know that you actually support people on their journey for free, even to start with. So I'd love to see if you just to share just a few minutes about that and how people can engage with that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and first off, maybe just a quick little bit of content around fasting is a lot of people don't realize when you do a fast, you know, it gives our body a break. It gives the body time to heal. And scientifically, what happens after about 8 to 12 hours of our body running out of glucose in the liver is it switches to ketosis. So our body starts burning fat. And now there's research out of the University of Southern California showing that after 3 days of a fast, our body shuts down an enzyme called PKA, which prevents stem cells from regenerating the body after 3 days. After 3 days, our body also completely strips your entire immune system of used and damaged immune cells, completely eradicates them, and builds an entire new immune system. It was Professor Longo out of the University of Southern California that was like, you know, how is the body doing this? If you fast for 3 days, which means you're not eating anything, how is it that your body's, you know, stripping the whole old immune system, and where is the new immune system coming from? And the cool thing is when you're breaking down fat, every fat cell in your body contains something called stem cells. And these stem cells, when they're broken down at a fast rate through fasting, have what's called pluripotency, meaning these stem cells can actually take the place of any cell in the body. So if you have damaged eyes, for example, they can go in and replace that. If you have damaged vascular system or liver or whatever it is, and these guys at the University of Southern California were just solely looking at it from an immune perspective. So doing a fast, you strip excess fat. That excess fat becomes embryonic style stem cells, which regenerate the body. There's research out of whole biological laboratories at the University of Chicago showing that our base metabolism is actually increased as well. You know, if you talk to people on social media, you ask around about fasting, you know, different health and exercise gurus will say, oh, don't fast, it'll ruin your metabolism. Well, you know, they're just kind of saying that maybe because they heard it somewhere. But the reality is there's actual science to show that it increases our metabolism. And when you hit about my age, you know, I'm 36, when you hit about, you know, 30 to 35, your base rate metabolism will slowly start to drop. And this drop might equate to maybe 1% every 3 to 5 years. But over time and distance, you know, 10 years, 15, 20, 30 years down the road, when it's down 3, 5, 6%, that equates to a degradation in the cellular material, and you start to age. So, you know, studies done at whole biological labs show that even extended fasting of 30 days or more can boost your base metabolism some 5 or 6%, which would equate to about a 15 to 20 year reversal. Not only that, they've done research with a 40-year-old male. They fasted for 2 weeks, and his cellular physiology was that of a 17-year-old, meaning that, you know, if you can imagine our cells, there's a preponderance of what's called nucleus material when we're younger. And as we get older, that nucleus material shrinks and the cellular material gets to be more and more and more. So if you look at a young individual, they'll have a good sized nucleus. And if you look at a really old person, you'll see that that nucleus is nearly gone. There's a lot of cellular material. But a 2-week fast takes a 40-year-old male back to that of a 17-year-old throughout all of your cells in your body. So now we're talking about, and you know, I can give you all the links to the science to show this. And it's really cool because, you know, I've been teaching this stuff for, you know, 15 years, and 15 years ago it wasn't very popular. You know, people were, you know, saying I was a freak and trying to starve people to death and killing people. And you know, you talk about fasting and they're just like, what? You're not going to eat food? You're crazy. And it's cool how far we've gone, you know, with people like Joe Cross that have done Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, and it's gone out to millions of people, where he went on juice for 60 days and healed himself of pretty chronic condition. You know, nowadays you talk about fasting and people are like, oh yeah, I really want to give that a try. So now you can give that a try. You can go to my online juice fast. It's on tylertolman.com, and it's just under cleanses. And what I've done is I run programs in Bali. You know, it's not cheap. People pay $7,000 to come to Bali, and we take them through a 7-day experience, myself and my father. And we, you know, do a juice fast, and we go on adventures, and we talk about health, and, you know, we talk about how to identify disease other than just blood tests by the ways they did anciently, how Hippocrates did it by looking into the eyes, by looking at the face, by looking at the tongue, by feeling the pulse, by looking at your nails, by, you know, observing the body, observing even your posture can tell you things about your own health. So yeah, we've taken all of the content, pretty much most of the content from one of these programs that we filmed, added more information and put it online for free because, you know, I believe that everybody should have access to this profound knowledge of regenerating the body, of healing from disease. You don't have to pay $7,000 and come to Bali. I would love you to, but you don't have to do that. You can just go online, sign up for free. You get an email, and there's a group of over 6,000 people who have gone through this. You can just read through some of the threads. People are healing, you know, skin conditions, digestive conditions, irritable bowel syndromes, Crohn's disease, all kinds of stuff, and talking about it, you know, reversing some pretty intense things that I'm not even going to mention because a lot of people will be like, oh, you're crazy. But yeah, I would recommend just going in, checking it out, and potentially pushing the limits of your experience with trying, you know, maybe a juice fast. And, you know, if it seems intense to do 7 days, just start off with maybe 1 day. And, you know, if you're afraid of sugars and fruits, just do a green juice fast.
That was actually,
and if you're not scared,
go ahead. Questions for you there, and thanks so much for that. Just what was the link again there, Tyler, that people can go to?
Well, I have a link. It's onlinejuicefast.com. I don't know if that one still works, but if they just go to tylertolman.com.
Beautiful, guys. So go check out tylertolman.com and you'll be able to find out all the information and links from there. Tyler, I'd love just to ask a question about that, because that's a really hot topic now at the moment about sugars. And you know, it's something that's starting to become quite scary. And actually, just before I go into this, I'm just going to throw it out to the audience. We're going to take some questions fairly soon for Tyler. So there's an area down the bottom where you can actually raise your hand and request to speak. So if you want to go ahead and do that, if you've got some questions to engage with Tyler and myself, feel free to do that. And in a few minutes' time, we'll be bringing a few people in to hold those questions. Otherwise, please pop your questions in the chat box and we can read some out and actually discuss those as we go. So Tyler, just coming back to the sugar side of things, it's something that's really a big conversation, and we look at, you know, at the moment, sugar is evil, sugar is the devil. I find it quite entertaining in the fact that, you know, we've just been around the fats as the devil and fats as evil for the last sort of decade, and now we're going, whoops, sorry, we got that wrong. Quick, get your fats back in your diet. At the moment, it's now sugar that's the devil, and obviously, you know, our brain can't even function without sugars. But you know, if you could just share your perspective about sugars and how this works, because there's a lot of people that unfortunately hear the message that sugar's bad, and they'll look at something like a juice fast or even fresh fruits and go, oh, way too much sugar for me. Can you share a bit of a perspective on that for us, actually?
Yeah, I would love to. And first off, I would say that sugar is toxic. You know, sugar is poisonous. It's highly acidic. I don't recommend ever eating sugar. And my definition of sugar is a cane that grows on a mountain. They burn the whole thing. They take that sugar, they process it, they get rid of all the molasses and all the good nutrients and vitamins and minerals, and they have this white powder content. This white powder content that's highly sweet is a drug. It's a chemical, it's acidic, and it's toxic, and it will lead to all kinds of different diseases, and it'll shut the body down, and it's horrible. But we have this thing called fruit, and there's no sugar in it. You know, we call it fructose, we call it glucose, we call it all these different things, but it's not like that. The thing is, if I drink, you know, if I juice like 10 carrots and I drink that, it alkalizes the body. It does the opposite of acid. It does the opposite of what sugar does. It alkalizes the body. There's thousands of phytonutrients. It's still all the life force. You know, I actually view the body as a juicer. You know, I can take a carrot, insert it in my mouth, and I can juice it myself, swallow all those juices. I mean, you eat a watermelon, you know, you're pretty much juicing the watermelon as you put it in your mouth. And it's the juices of these plants. It's the blood of the plant, whether it be green leaf, vegetables, whether it be any of these things that carry all of this nutrition into the cells. And it's a complete matrix of vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, good fats, all these different things that come in and, upload into the interstitial tissues. Like you were saying, our brain runs on sugars, our cells run on sugars, carbohydrates hydrate the body and give us fuel and energy. And, if you want to try to argue that, it's like, well, let's think about what's the most optimal food when you come into this life. And a baby comes into this life, and the first thing it does is it looks for a mother's teat, and it's, sticks its mouth on there and starts drinking. And it has this experience of like, oh my God, this is amazing because of the galactose and lactose inside of the milk. It's the sugars that the baby's actually looking for. And if you look at the composition of mother's milk, it's mainly carbohydrates, it's mainly sugar, and then it's fats. And when I say sugar, I'm meaning, the natural form. But we have carbohydrates, then we have fat, and then you have just the tiny, tiny, tiny bit of protein. Everybody's on these massive protein crazes. And according to T. Colin Campbell and other people now, the more animal-based protein you have, the more your IGF-1 is spiked in the liver, the higher your chances of heart disease, the higher your chances of cancer, the higher your chances of all these things that we're trying to avoid. But essentially, when you first come into the world, you're looking for sugars. If you look at any baby or toddler, on its back, and you give it something, it sticks it in its mouth. And what it's doing is it's trying to identify if it's food or not. And if that thing is sweet, it'll eat it. And if it's not sweet, it spits it out. So, our natural instincts coming into this world are to eat sugars. If you go out into nature, like if you just took away everything you've ever been told, I plopped you out on an island somewhere and say, hey, you figure it out, find out what's good for you, you'll discover very quickly that people will, smell some food, use their eyes to identify some food, something blue, something orange, something whatever, and you'll go take that food and eat it. And Mother Nature wouldn't lie to us. If it's sweet, it's not poisonous, which I find absolutely amazing. There's no sweet foods on this planet that are poisonous. Whereas if you, find any other greens, any type of herb, anything else, it could potentially be poisonous. You got to kind of go through a process to make sure it's not. So essentially, what is the sweetness inside of fresh fruits and vegetables? It's actually converted sun energy. It's pure sun energy. And the reason I say that is the dirt isn't sweet. Water isn't sweet. But a plant going from a seed and growing up will take dirt and water and sunshine and produce sweet foods. So I like to think of it when I'm eating a fresh fruit or a vegetable or a carrot. There's lots of vegetables that have supposedly a lot of sugar as well. I like to see it as pure sun energy. It alkalizes the body, it's healthy, and you don't have to deal with that acidic white stuff.
That's beautiful, mate. I think you've covered that very, very well for those who are a bit concerned. Even just to share a little bit, and I often talk about, I had a health challenge quite a number of years ago. And one of the things for me, I was exercising a lot. I was going to the gym regularly. I was working out. I was surfing all the time, very active, and having my protein shakes all the time. It was something I did very religiously because that's what you were supposed to do. I later found out through epigenetics and a lot of the personalized health conversations that we have these days about the fact that my body was actually lower naturally in producing digestive enzymes, which meant that and even hydrochloric acid to break down some of the stuff that needs to be there for digestion. That I was having so much protein that it actually wasn't getting digested so well, and that ended up floating around my body and causing calcification through my spine and many other things. So it's really important. This whole conversation, this whole week, this whole 2 weeks, is 100% about personalized health, about finding out what's right for you. The same thing is not the same for everybody. We're all very different. There's no one size fits all. Every single person on this planet is different. We're 100% unique, and so our message is really to find out what's right for you. And really start to take advantage and start to take control of your health. So Tyler, thanks for sharing that. We've got Pam who's joining us. Thanks for your patience there, Pam. I'm just going to, Pam, if you could just unmute yourself, and if you've got a question for Tyler, if you could just share with us where you're dialing in from today, and please fire away with any questions you have.
Hi Matt, hi Tyler, can you hear me?
Perfectly, Pam,
yeah.
Thank you. Where are you
Great.
calling?
I'm from Manchester, England.
Beautiful. Thanks for calling in.
Beautiful.
What's the question?
I mean, you keep talking about juicing, Tyler, and I wonder what's the difference between juicing and making smoothies. So blending, is one better than the
Yep.
other, or are they equal?
Yeah. Well, I would say that blending is fantastic. You know, I have a beautiful blender. I put things and I make green smoothies. Sometimes I make fruit smoothies. I do that all the time in my regular lifestyle. But at times, you know, my body kind of gets a little bit congested. I kind of lose savor for food a little bit, and I realize that it's time to do a fast. And fasting can be really regenerative to the body. So a fast, the difference is that when you just drink the juices or only drink water, you completely give the digestive system a break, meaning the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, all the enzyme pools, everything that's normally required to break down foods is completely relieved of duty, so to speak, but you're still receiving the life force and all the massive amount of micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, and things to give your body energy. And there's different reasons to do a water fast, and there would be different reasons to do a juice fast. But essentially, fasting in general, the digestive system can nearly stop. And what happens, because the digestive system is a mucosal lining of its system, it will build up that mucus and slough off and start to eliminate. Your organs go from that of digestion to that of detoxification. So your liver has time to then start to get rid of the toxins that it's been accumulating potentially over time through the processes of cleaning you out. Your kidneys, your digestive system, your immune system, everything has time to catch up. And what I would say is that if you were living an optimal lifestyle, you would never need to fast. But when you live a lifestyle, you know, like Matt was saying, where he has lots of, you know, foreign proteins and things that accumulate in the body, having that time to fast, your body goes around and starts to deconstruct all those foreign proteins and take out the trash, so to speak. It would be like, you know, living in a city where, you know, the trucks that take out the trash stopped for a month,
Yeah.
you know, or 2 or 3 months, and all this garbage adds up. You know, that's what's happening inside the body to a degree. You know, I think that a lot of people put on fats as a protective mechanism because we're becoming acidic and because there's excess proteins and other things in the body. So the fasting time is really complete, you know, not even having, of course there's some fiber in the juices, but really reducing it down to where your digestive system doesn't have to work, it can rest, it can heal, it can reset. And so yeah, that's the difference. And having the smoothies, like I said, I would still highly recommend having them on a daily basis, but then also cutting out time where you can experience a fast.
Right, thanks. So how often would you recommend fasting?
For myself, I focus on trying to do about 7 to 10 days every 3 months. So every change of season, you know, and anciently they talked about 40-day fasts quite a bit. So if you did 10 days 4 times a year, that's a 40-day fast per year. A 10-day fast will reset what's called the endocrine system, which is all the glands in our body are reset, so your hormones are working properly. It gives you a really good cleanse. It's kind of like a whole body reset, so to speak. So every 3 months or so, about 7 to 10 days would be optimal. You know, if somebody's dealing with a specific digestive condition or some type of problem, then they may want to explore doing, you know, maybe 21 days on juices to just really have a good reset. And I would say, you know, if you lived the most optimal lifestyle, you probably would never need to fast because you're doing it every day. So, you know, for me, I live a lifestyle where I'm fasting for at least 16 to 18 hours every single day and kind of minimizing my meal times so that my body has time to regenerate and detoxify on that daily basis type of thing.
That's beautiful, Tyler. Thanks.
Right,
Thanks
thank you.
much. That's a great question. And Pam, we also talk about the difference in physiology of people as well, just so that to sort of round out that conversation too. Everybody has a very different digestive system. Everybody has different amounts of digestive enzymes, different amounts of different lengths of their actual digestive tract and size of their stomach, and they were all very different physiologically. And so, it's important to be aware that some people are more prone to glycation, some people are more prone to toxicity in their bodies. Some people digest and respond very poorly or very well to heavy metals, and there's so many different things to consider with each person differently. And that's why this whole conversation about personalised health is happening this couple of weeks, just to help people understand. So there's different, as Tyler talks about too, there's some people who are great for a short fast from time to time. There's some people who do longer fasts more regularly with their body to help eliminate some of the toxicity that's there. So understanding more about who you are and what sort of fasting is good for you is really important too, and that's what Tyler specialises in. So thanks so much for the question, Cam, and I'm going to just drop you out of the call here, and we've got a heap of other questions coming in on the chat. So hang on, just give me 1 second. I think that we're just going to reject. Thank you so much. Tyler, I'm just going to jump to a couple of questions out of the chat just quickly here. So we've got a great question from Linda who says, is there any time when it's not safe to fast? She was on medication for several years that damaged her adrenals. Would fasting further suppress them, or would it help? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and you're spot on with that, Matt. Everybody is a bit different, and some people are dealing with diabetes, hypoglycemia, hyperglycemia, all kinds of different, overactive thyroid, underactive thyroid, adrenal fatigue. These sorts of conditions need to be dealt with. When somebody does have an extreme condition, it should be dealt with, on an individual basis. And, for me, I would look at it at different degrees of healing. So someone who had adrenal fatigue, yes, sometimes I do put them through a fast, and sometimes it is exactly what they need. Sometimes they need to create the environment for it. You can't just, start drinking juices and still pushing yourself, at work and stressed environment and trying to do all these things and expect to heal yourself. Like, the conditions for fasting anciently were like, they didn't have cold pressed juicers, that you can plug into a wall. It was a big process, but they would go out and lay down and find a river somewhere with clean drinking water or a stream, and they would, rest. They would fast, they would drink water. If you look at any mammal on the planet, when it gets sick or injured, it'll go lie down, it'll drink water, and it'll rest, because it's that resting process as well that really helps regenerate the body. So the conditions need to be right, the environment needs to be right, and knowing specifically what the person is dealing with, how much of a chronic condition it's been, how long they've been dealing with it, what kind of medications they're on. There's a lot of factors to get into. I do personal consultations for situations like that. But in general, I would recommend moving towards more, more plants and less food in general, and maybe even a little bit of intermittent fasting to give that body a break, and having, de-stressing, doing yoga, doing meditation, finding some other forms of nourishing yourself. Adrenal fatigue, a lot of time energetically could be connected to grief, and maybe living a life that you're not fully fulfilled by, or being overworked. So, there's so many factors to look at. And I do believe that if we can create the situation for the right kind of fast, then yes, it would be efficacious in the terms of adrenal fatigue. And I do have lots of clients that have had, adrenal exhaustion, chronic fatigue, and these sorts of things that I've helped go through a fast. And it's definitely tougher. They definitely have a little bit more of a tough time, but the idea is give yourself the space to be able to sleep. Give yourself the space to be able to lay out in the sun, do breathing exercises, skin cleaning, going through the basic rounds, the protocols that I teach on my online juice fast. If you can really give yourself 2 weeks would be ideal. 10 days, like I said, resets the endocrine system. The adrenal glands are part of that system. So there will be a boost. I can't say that 10 days is just going to fix you. But, if you do a 10-day juice fast in the right environment, and making sure, you do it correctly, doing that occasionally, you'll get there. and just modifying your lifestyle to that, which is going to match, you know, the optimal way of living for you, is also going to be very beneficial. So hopefully I answered the question.
That's great, Tyler. Thank you. And Linda, thanks for the question. And just to sort of confirm some of what you said there, Tyler, it's really important for people to understand that, I guess, if you're in a serious medical condition, or if you've had some serious issues, make sure you do this with support, whether it's through alternative practitioners or someone like Tyler, or Western medical practitioners, whichever is the right choice for you at that time. Make sure you're supported when you're doing something like this. But the second thing to be aware of is that life is not just about foods, and we're here talking a lot about foods today, but as Tyler mentioned, even from centuries and centuries ago, it's been a consideration of all these things that we refer to now as epigenetics, all the things in our life, in our environment, in our lifestyle. In fact, we now have science that shows that our genetics maybe play 5 to 10% of a role in our diseases, and our environment and lifestyle is a huge factor. So our stress, our circumstances, our climate, what we're doing with our day, our mind, the way that we perceive things, what we believe, all these things actually influence our health. But it's also been shown that our foods can actually change and instigate some of those things. Our foods can change our biochemistry, our neurochemistry, can change the way we actually perceive things, can change our beliefs, which then changes our emotions and our response to stress. And so there's just such a dynamic interaction that we're finding out now. And it's really important to consider that any circumstance you're in, that you really want to be mindful of all the things in your life that are contributing towards that, not just expecting to do a fast for a couple of days and life suddenly changes. So that's a really important thing to understand. And with Tyler, the work that he does, which we really support, Tyler, I love the work that you do. It's really a holistic approach to everything. It's not just, hey, just go on this juice fast. That's just one component of it. And it's all the other things that come into play that actually determine the health and happiness that you have. So thank you, Tyler. I'm just going to jump to one or two more questions here. We've got heaps of questions that are coming in now, which is fantastic. Judy, who's been trying to log in. Judy, thanks for your patience. I know you've been trying to get in for the call for 3 or 4 times now. Judy asks, will fasting help me? I'm having a really hard time concentrating, focusing, and following through on my health.
Yeah, when it comes to concentration, when it comes to mental fog, things going on of that nature, I find that fasting is probably the best thing for it. I think one common denominator you'll get with people who are doing extended fasting especially is, at first, if they're addicted to coffee and some of these other things, they might have a headache, they feel like crap, they go through these, pretty intense symptoms. But there's ways to support and get through that a little bit easier as well. But the thing that you'll find is people end up hitting just this clarity, this point in which everything becomes clear, your memory is very sharp. I could probably go off for an hour on a story of the memory capabilities that I've had for fast, specifically remembering grade 3, grade 2, grade 1, kindergarten, remembering my school song, in elementary school, and kids' names that, whole lifetimes of stuff I've completely forgotten, fully coming back during a fast. And so there's some other things that I'm not talking about, today with fasting that are beyond just the health things. But with mental clarity, I believe in the as above, so below principle, that if your bowels are toxic and your bowels are backed up and there's things going on, down here, then it's going to be a reflection of your mental capabilities. So I believe that people that really have mental fog and really have a tough time mentally, it's probably a really digestive thing going on. And if you can, do a colon cleanse, another thing I sell on my website is a really good colon cleanse. Do a juice fast for, a certain period of time, and then rebuild your gut with, really good fermented foods and really good prebiotics and probiotics, vegetables, fruits, things of this nature. I really think you'll find yourself, if coffee is an addiction where you're drinking a day just to make it through the day, you'll find yourself.
All right, Tyler, I think you may have just dropped out a little bit there, mate. I'm not sure when you're coming back in, but
where'd you lose me?
Okay, we're back. We're back. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
We're good. Okay. Yeah, if you want to give us the short end version of where you're going with this, then that would be fantastic. And we'll jump to
clean your digestive system and your mental ability will come up big time. So I would say colon cleanse, juice fast, and then rebuilding the gut with good probiotics and things of that nature from fermented foods, fruits, and vegetables.
Beautiful, thank you, mate. And that's such an important thing to consider is what our entire body and what's in there, and our gut does reflect the brain, and there's a lot more research and science now coming out about the microbiome and about clarity, even with Alzheimer's, MS, with many different things now that are really clearly showing a link 100% to the gut and to our brain and how that works. So one last question we've got from Celia here. What kind of foods can help with healing the body from grief? I've lost 11 family members over a period of a decade, and I feel like I keep getting slammed with grief. Are there foods that can help with grief recovery while I do the emotional work and try to regain peace in my life? Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, grief is something a lot of people deal with. And I think, in some cases, people suppress it with food. And those emotional molecules get buried in the body. And a lot of times, we call the baggage, the fat that we have on our body, baggage. It's what we're carrying around with us. It's the emotional content also. And I find a lot of times when people lose weight, whether it's through a really healthy diet or whether it's through fasting, when the weight starts to come off, those emotional molecules are released as well. So, another thing about going back thousands of years is you will see that there's very specific parables talking about for every day that you fast is almost a year's worth of accumulation within the body. And to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, I run a program called Heal Thyself, which is a 30-day juice fasting program. And I deal with people who have terminal cancer, stage 3, stage 4 cancer, brain tumors, lung cancer, colon, liver cancer, diabetes, heart disease. And when these people fast, let's say they're doing 21 days on a fast, they might be perfectly fine, feel really good for 5 days, and then bang, something hits them. They're sick, they're puking, they're in pain, they've got all this stuff coming up. And I can tell you, every single time I go up to these people and say, what day are you on? Day 5. What happened 5 years ago? They'll go back and be like, oh my God, that's exactly the emotion. That's exactly what I'm feeling. 5 years ago, my father died. I was a wreck. I got sick. I had all this emotional stuff and all these things going on. I can't believe that's what it is. So what's interesting about fasting is you not only clear the physical conditions, you go back and you wipe clear the emotional content as well. So, it's something that, isn't really talked about very often with fasting. And it's the reason why a lot of people will break a fast. They'll start doing a juice fast or a water fast or something of this nature, and they'll just get hit with this massive emotion on a certain day and just be like, oh, this isn't for me. I can't fast. Like, this isn't, this just isn't for me. And the thing is, they don't realize that it's hitting some really deep stuff. And this deep stuff is what really needs to be cleared in order for us to just move forward and be truly who we are in a situation of health and life and vitality. And there are other techniques for this as well. There's breath work techniques that can take people and bring up emotional stuff, and you can clear it. Emotional pattern clearing. I'm sure Matt has a whole belt full of amazing tools that could really help you clear that stuff without even doing a fast. But I do think that the nutritional side is good as well, because as he's clearing stuff and then you might leave and go, pig out on something, you might rebury some of that emotional stuff. So I think that either keeping it really light in the diet while you're doing emotional clearing or doing a fast completely allows those emotional molecules and all those things to completely clear so that you can get through it. And like I said, there's some other techniques that you could be going through to identify specifically where the grief is and to work through it and clear it out.
Beautiful, Tyler. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, and thanks for the question, Celia. And Celia also just posted in while we're talking that she's had immense pain since that time. So Celia, please make sure that you get the right support around you for that. And PH360 is a fantastic place to start to find more about yourself. Tyler's community, tylertolman.com, is amazing wealth of resources. Tyler, I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I love the work that you're doing, and we're really so excited that you're able to spend some time here on the summit with us. This is our first show. We're so excited to kick off the summit with a great chat about nutrition, a great chat about ancient practices, not just the foods, but about even the protocols and the way that they relate to food and give thanks to food and how that influences our body. The fact that food is our life force. We're all energy at the end of the day, and we're connected to that. It's just such a great conversation, a great way to start this summit and to kick off. So, mate, thank you so much for joining us, and particularly for those at home, thank you so much for making the time to be here, to put your health first, whether you're watching live or watching a replay, because life is busy. We really hope you're enjoying the content that you're going to be getting out of this next 2 weeks. We've got an amazing lineup of 30 speakers. Please check it out, onlinehealthsummit.com/schedule, I believe. There should be a link down on your right-hand side where you can see that. You can just go and click on any of the speakers, and you'll automatically receive replays, emails with the speakers. So you'll get this session in your inbox at some stage with Tyler. And if you want to go ahead, check out on Facebook, Online Health Summit on Facebook, and also on Twitter. The social media channels will be posting all about the speakers that are coming up, the content we're talking about, and really hoping to share some amazing information with you this next few weeks. So Tyler, thank you so much for joining us today, and everybody listening at home, whether live or replays, thank you so much for your time and effort being here. And we're really looking forward to helping share a lot of this information so you can find out all about how unique you are and live a happy and healthy life. So thank you all, and look forward to talking again in a couple of hours.
Thank you, Matt. You're a genius. I love you. You're awesome. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.